beautiful sunrise. Good morning. Oh, well, am I offset a little? I think I'm offset a little. Yeah, that happens every once in a while. The sun is coming up. You should be able to see it in that corner there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not quite, but close enough. Anywho, Friday morning, getting up, gotta go to work again. Joy and bliss. Yeah. Anyways, a scammer, one of many, who has hacked the Facebook account of yet another of my friends, or rather a friend of a friend, yeah, has sent me a message, and it's the usual scam. Have you heard, have you received the mail, the email about the grants and loans that are available from the agent? Just get a hold of the agent, and he'll give you all this money. Yeah, yeah. And when it's a friend of yours that sends you this message and you phone them up and ask them about it, they have no idea what you're talking about. But they'll tell you that their Facebook was hacked. Yeah. Yeah. And this time the scammer has decided to invoke the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that notorious partner with the CIA that orchestrates coups in small, weak, third world countries in order to ensure that American oil companies and American lumber companies and American mining companies are able to waltz in and take over and run things without having to pay taxes or pay their workers. Yeah. 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 Colonial democracy is what the IMF supports. Not grandmothers trying to send their grandchildren to college. Not students trying to pay off their loans. Not ordinary workers trying to pay their bills. But American corporations trying to take over small countries and turn them into resource bases. See, here's how the IMF works. They approach a country that wants to improve itself, and they offer them a loan. Big loans, never less than $1 billion, usually tens to hundreds of billions of dollars. And the country eagerly waits for the money, but it never arrives because the money doesn't go to that country. You see, the IMF philosophy is these countries don't know what's good for them. It's very colonialist, very paternalistic. It's colonial democracy at its finest. So instead, the money goes to an American corporation, or a British corporation, but usually American. And the money is used not to improve the lives of the citizens by building schools and hospitals and roads that connect the communities of the country. No, it's used to build infrastructure to serve foreign corporations. It builds a 6-lane highway that runs from the seaport to the oil wells, and it builds an oil terminal in the seaport that blocks up 3/4 of the seaport, so that now the country's fishing boats can no longer get in and out. Ta-da! Yeah, and the 6-lane highway is built across the migration route that the local cattle drivers use to drive their cattle back and forth from the highland pastures to the lowland pastures. So when they try to push their cattle across, their cattle get run over by oil tanker trucks. Ta-da! Yeah. That's what the IMF supports. And when the country cannot pay back the loan because none of the infrastructure is actually benefiting them, they get a little visit from the CIA. Pay back the money, or else. But they haven't gotten any money. They have not received a penny. So, the CIA will move in, sometimes backed by the United States Marine Corps, and they will exercise regime change. removing a popular, well-respected government and replacing it with a right-wing paramilitary force headed by a thug whose first loyalty is to the CIA. They will then brag about how they've brought democracy to a country that has had elections for decades by imposing an unelected thug as the new president. Yeah. Yeah. And then they will say, okay, now you got to change your tax laws. You can no longer charge taxes on foreign corporations. You can't tax them anymore. But in order to pay off the loan, you need to tax the ever-living shit out of your people. Oh, and you've got a few schools and hospitals. We'll take those over and we'll privatize them. We'll make them into money-making ventures. And that'll help pay off your debt. Yeah. And finally, yeah, sell your resources to the American government. And put an American base right outside your nation's capital. So that not only can we control other countries, but we can control you. And that way, it'll count toward paying off the interest on your IMF loan. Yeah. When the IMF takes an interest in a private person like you or me, it's not to give us a grant to help us financially. It's because we've embarrassed them so much that they need to get the CIA in there to call in a drone strike on wherever we live or wherever we work, to kill us along with everybody within a 100-yard radius. So no, the IMF isn't interested in giving me money to pay my bills. They're not.